Ooh, what's up, Internet? My name's Nerdy.
I'm Clarice.
We get Nerdy Nightly.
And we thought we'd share it with you.
Yeah, WandaVision episode 4 spoilers. Seriously, spoilers. If you have not seen WandaVision episode 4, do not stay past the theme song.
Turn it off.
That is right. Welcome to our full spoilers. I want to be so clear about this because this episode is...
It's spoilery.
It's spoilery, but also, like, this is maybe one of the coolest episodes of television I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you haven't seen it, I don't know why you're watching this. Turn it off. Go watch WandaVision. It's like, wow.
What this show is able to do in this episode, because of the legacy and the buildup of the MCU, is so incredible, and I cannot wait to talk about it with you.
Yeah. I think what you said about it being an amazing piece of television, but it's only possible because of the work that they have done on the MCU so far, is so true. I think that we have to give them credit where credit is due. They've built up this incredible, vast universe. And now they're using it to the best of their advantage, and I think they're doing a great job.
Yeah, this episode starts with Monica Rambeau blipping back.
Yes.
They use the words the blip.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the blip is the moment people blipped out of existence, or if they blipped back, or maybe they use the blip because it can be both. Mm-hmm. But it started with Monica unblipping.
Yes.
So her dust was reconforming into her body. And I was like, oh, I didn't...
What was that?
What superpower does Monica have?
Yeah. It took us a second. We were both like, what?
It was the first shot was weird. And then the second shot where her hands reconfigured, I was like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh my god. And then that scene in the hospital. So
what happens is everyone starts coming back into existence, and they're in the middle of a hospital, and it's utter chaos.
It's a nightmare. Can you imagine?
No.
She comes back into her mom's hotel room, and her mom isn't there. Like,
hotel room.
Sorry, hospital room.
Hospital room. Yeah.
Like, I had chills. Like that opening sequence was one of the more powerful scenes that the MCU has made, in my opinion. It was emotionally incredible. We don't really know Monica yet. Like, we don't know any of these people yet, but it hit like a gut punch.
Yeah, and I think it's super interesting that they're choosing to show that side of everything when, obviously in Endgame, everybody was like, oh, yeah, this is great. When, like, those first moments would have been hell. Well, utter hell.
As Spider-Man Far From Home treats it like a joke. Yeah. Not treats it like a joke, but plays it for comedy.
But they make light of it.
With the band suddenly popping back into the gym and stuff like that. They don't... Spider-Man Far From Home, because of the tone of the film, needs to treat it the way that a high school, coming-of-age movie would treat it. And that totally makes sense. And I think that there was some criticism levied at that film at the time by people who were like, hey, like, I feel like you could have maybe treated that more seriously. And I think that a lot of people following Endgame wanted to see some of these properties treated a little bit more seriously.
Yes.
And to see them do that in WandaVision in such a real, like, no superpowers way. Yeah,
no heroes, no sugarcoating, nothing.
Like, obviously we know as an outside audience that Monica Rambeau will probably eventually have superpowers. In the comics, she's had a few different names. She has been Captain Marvel. And so she will probably end up having superpowers in the MCU, I would imagine. They've cast such an incredible actress to play her.
She's great.
Who really, really... The first half of this episode, until she disappears through the portal into the town formerly known as Westview.
Yeah.
Her performance is so great.
Yeah.
And she's been great in the previous episodes, but the whole amnesia thing was a little odd because she didn't have a real character behind it.
Yeah.
And so to finally see...
She was part of the sitcom.
Yeah. And now her character in the sitcom is even more powerful in those earlier episodes because we know that it's this, like, veneer that Wanda... Spoiler alert, Wanda is forcing on her?
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like this is all Wanda's doing. We've talked about... Is she doing this to herself? No. Is someone doing it to her? They are making it seem like this is purposeful on Wanda's part.
She wants to be with her dead husband.
Yeah. She forcibly ejects Monica from Westview. And they're very blatant about that.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like someone's controlling her. She doesn't seem out of it. She seems pretty in control of her actions.
I don't know about that yet.
Okay.
She definitely appears to be in control of her actions.
Mm-hmm.
However, a lot of the villains that have been thrown around who could be influencing this, like Mephisto, like there are kinds of like mind warping, influencing villains in the MCU, or in Marvel Comics at least, not so much in the MCU yet, who could be influencing her to be behaving this way, who could be amping her up. However, if you have read House of M, which is a comic book about a time when WandaVision essentially rewrote reality like this to a much grander scale. House of M is literally, she rewrites all of reality. It's an incredible book. You need to read it. It's in the book. It's in the box over there.
I will.
But in that book, she isn't really. It really is her choice.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if they do decide to make her essentially the villain of this series, it's going to be really fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, at this point, like, no one's really been injured yet. Like, no one's dead.
Well, and that's what my question is. If someone else is influencing her, what do they gain out of this? What is their goal? What, like...
They take the most powerful person in the MCU off the table for what they're trying to do outside of Westview. Sure,
but so far the show hasn't shown us any outside influences that this might be affected by, so that could be the case, but for right now they are making it feel like it is all in Wanda, and maybe that is the point.
So Monica gets pulled in. Monica goes back to S.W.O.R.D. Very cool to see S.W.O.R.D. Very cool to see that her mom was essentially the founder of S.W.O.R.D.
Yeah,
they're pulling a real like Haley Atwell, Peggy Carter is founding S.H.I.E.L.D. The way they introduced her in Captain America, and then the way they introduced Marie Rambeau, Monica's mom, and the best friend to Captain Marvel in the Captain Marvel movie. I just like that Marie Rambeau and Peggy Carter essentially have the same storyline in the MCU.
Yeah.
Where they're like the sidekick in the first movie / maybe love interest. A lot of people want that. And then they go on to form one of the SH companies. But her mom's dead, which is very sad, because Marie Rambeau, I mean, it's a great character. And, I think we're all hoping that we'll see her in Captain Marvel 2 somehow, but this makes it seem like that's probably not going to be the case, unless there are flashbacks in that movie.
Yeah.
Because we've heard that this Monica Rambeau will be in Captain Marvel 2. But she goes back to work, they come upon Westview, and then in a scene that you need Randall Park, who plays Jimmy Woo, in this franchise. He's back from the Ant-Man movies. He's so good. He opens that scene by doing sleight of hand magic to pull out his business card. And for just a brief moment, I was like, is this another sitcom? Like, is this like the crossover with his sitcom Fresh Off the Boat? Which I think is the sitcom he's on. I hope that's true. Let me Google that really quick to make sure.
Oh my goodness. He's amazing. He's so delightful. Despite the
Fresh Off the Boat. I was right.
Despite the despite the lightness of the actual like sitcom part of the show, the like ramifications of what is going on may actually be very dark, and that's what this episode kind of showed us.
100%,
They talked about radiation that is currently at safe levels. Obviously, I'm
that's going to come back later.
That's going to change.
Foreshadowing. I did appreciate after they introduced Randall Park, they introduced Kat Dennings coming back as her character from the Thor movies.
Yeah.
And I appreciated that the two people they brought back from previous MCU movies in this episode are the two members of the MCU who both have hit sitcoms.
Oh,
because Kat Dennings is on Two Broke Girls,
Yep.
or was. I don't think that show's still running.
Right.
And Randall Park was on Fresh Off the Boat.
Yeah.
And so they literally brought in the sitcom stars of the MCU to the sitcom show.
That's amazing.
But then they introduce the concept in this episode that is the big dumb idea, right? A lot of these shows have a big dumb idea, and whether or not your show works depends on whether or not the audience buys into the big dumb idea.
Yeah.
And the big dumb idea in this show is that Kat Dennings turns on her device, sees a wavelength that looks like an old television signal. So she turns on an old TV, and WandaVision is broadcasting the sitcom that we were watching. And I'm going to say right now, as far as big dumb ideas go, they nail this one, and it really works for me. How do you feel about it?
I'm here for it. I was like, yep, I buy that. I buy into that 110%.
Yeah.
Like the way that they've set up the show thus far, with the first 3 episodes, and also just with who the characters are and the tone of the show, I was like, yep, I'm in. I'm sold. You don't need to like force it on me. You don't need to like try and explain it and give me like I'm here for it. I buy it. So
well, and what I appreciated about it is that the characters. The characters who are the FBI, all these agencies who first interact with the... I don't mean big dumb idea in like a mean way. I want to be clear. No. Big dumb, to me, like I call like the big dumb idea the thing that doesn't work in the real world that you are trying to get your audience to buy into.
Yeah.
And it's like the fantastical idea. Like the fact that Superman can fly and is also invulnerable to bullets. It's all a big dumb idea. And then the storytelling is how do you convince your audience that this is something to immerse themselves in and it is a story worth feeling emotionally connected to, despite the fact that it's unreal.
Yeah.
And what works about this sitcom for me is that everyone who sees it, their first reaction is,
Yeah.
And then they all realize that it's actually happening. And the actors do such a good job of individually having a moment when they're like, I mean, the Avengers exist. Okay, we're just going to treat this, you know what I mean? Like, they all kind of give up their own reaction to the big dumb idea. And so it gives the audience a in-universe character to move into the big dumb idea with.
Yeah.
It gives the audience a viewpoint through which to view the sitcom, finally. Because the first 3 episodes are a little like, what is happening?
Yeah.
And there are bad reviews online for the show because there are people who review it online going, I don't understand. Like, I don't, what is this?
Yeah. Here's the thing. I think it was very smart of them to do shorter episodes. I think if they had been 45 minutes to an hour, I think I would have been in the same boat. I would have been like, I don't know what you're trying to do.
Well, actually, the episodes from here on out they get longer.
Yes,
which
is an interesting choice. But I think they're gonna have a lot more stuff to tell us.
Yeah, and they won't be stuck in a sitcom structure. So they won't have like the first 2 episodes are in sitcom structure.
And they're 3 acts. The show. Yeah. The ratio aspect changing is so cool.
Yeah, it's beautiful. The special effects in this episode
are amazing.
Dead Vision.
Yeah.
That was horrifying.
Yeah, I was like, oh my god. Like...
Yeah, and Elizabeth Olsen sells it. Yeah. Because she isn't playing evil in any moment. Even, like, her scene, her interaction with Monica Rambeau when they finally reveal that Wanda is in control is very much almost like Predator in self-defense mode. And it really comes across that way. It doesn't come across as like, this is all part of my grand plan. Oh, no. It's a very small reaction of, I have decided that I'm on this course of action and I'm not going to kill you. I'm just going to remove you from the situation. Yeah, she could have obviously handled that differently. You know, she could have killed her. Could have done anything. Which long term, I think will help Scarlet Witch remain a hero. Like, the balance they're going to have to... The seesaw of this show moving forward is that we know that Scarlet Witch is going to be in movies after this where people want her to be a good person. And so how far she goes in defending Westview is going to really impact her ability to be a hero. Yeah. Because if she ends up killing all these sword agents, and like it becomes very hard to root for her later. Yeah, I agree. It's a fine line they're going to be walking. So far they've done a great job. But I'm glad they're walking that line, right? Because this is a more interesting show. Oh yeah, it makes it way more interesting to watch. You know, that's why I'm kind of the mind, like, that's why I kind of want it to all be Wanda. It's not so much that I feel like it is. It's because I want it to be. It's a more interesting story about her getting over the terrible things that have happened and how she's dealing with that. And, you know, somebody with that amount of power... There's just
a lot more complexity there than somebody else
100%.
pulling the strings.
Yeah, the problem becomes the ending, right? Like, how do you pull off the ending of this show if the end of the show is just going to be Wanda realizes that she has to move on from Vision? How do you tell that story in a way that involves the characters that you have now brought in? Because there's so much going on now, and it's going to be tough. It really the scale of the show keeps growing, and so in order to have like a satisfying ending to this story, there's going to have to be a more real and more interpersonal conflict at some point. And when that comes, how do you resolve that if everyone is on the same side? And so I do think either the show is going to bring in someone on the outside that they need to pull Scarlet Witch out because they need her help, or I have a feeling that what's actually going to happen is that I know nothing. This is not
speculation.
This is totally speculation. I think that WandaVision, in her attempt to keep the Westview community from these outsiders who are now surrounding her and who are genuinely trying to break in. We saw the beekeeper from the previous episode was an agent that was trying to get in through the sewers in a scene that was really cool. The way they when they pull the thing back and it becomes that like skip rope. Yeah. That was dope.
Yeah.
I think that in her efforts to maintain her community, she's going to be tearing at reality, right? That's kind of what she's doing. And she's going to tear open a hole in the multiverse. Something is going to come through. And in having to take down that something, that is where her realization that she can let go of Pietro and she can let go of Vision is going to happen. And that is going to bring her back around to being a hero. It won't be in a direct confrontation with Sword.
It's going to be like the better version of Wonder Woman.
I mean, Wonder Woman 84.
Yeah, Wonder Woman 84.
Yeah.
To be clear.
Well, but here's the thing. Like, Wonder Woman 84's story about letting go works if you have time to tell it. Part of Wonder Woman 84's problem is that, like, there's no time in that movie to tell that part of the story because we're so
much
about the wishing.
But yeah, I hope that that's kind of what it is. I think that would be really, like, powerful and interesting to watch.
Well, we know Evan Peters is in the show somehow, right? And if he's not back as Quicksilver, if he's going to be someone else, it would be kind of weird.
Yeah.
So he's probably Quicksilver, right? Yeah. Or the multiverse version. We know that this movie is supposed to feed into Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah.
We know that there's multiverse shenanigans in Spider-Man 3, and that apparently Scarlet Witch might also be in that film. So it sounds like Scarlet Witch has kind of become at the center of a series of multiverse things.
Yeah.
And bringing in a villain through this multiverse to confront Wanda and have her have to break her own fake reality in order to fight this villain, and have her have to let go of Vision in order to save the world. It's probably. I mean, that's probably where this is going, I would assume. But
I buy it. Yeah.
I also could not have possibly predicted this episode. So.
Yeah.
I thought we had 2 more sitcom episodes before we got to the real world.
Yeah, me too. I mean, we definitely thought more stuff would be revealed this episode, but this was definitely kind of beyond our expectations.
Yeah.
It's funny, we keep saying that, like, these chats we're going to try to, like, keep them shorter because, the episodes are only 30 minutes, blah, blah, blah.
This one was 36.
Yeah, and it's hard to do that because, like you said, the scale of the show keeps growing.
Well, in the scale of this episode, I could talk for an hour and a half about that opening sequence and why it is one of my favorite scenes in all of the MCU. Yeah. I really could. I was so... It's so smart. It's so well made. The way that it's shot, the cinematography of it, like, literally everything about it. The implications of... The thing that the MCU hasn't gotten into in any way yet is the implications of people being gone for 5 years. This was kind of the first time where Monica goes into S.W.O.R.D. and is like, hey, like, I work here. And they're like, no, you don't. And she's like, well, in my mind, yesterday I did. Yesterday I left work at 5 o'clock. And the implications of the people in the blip not remembering anything, just being gone and coming back is fascinating. And I don't, like, the amount of storytelling that you can do around that is insane. And I know that the MCU doesn't want to focus on it because it is hard. It's dark. It doesn't fit the tone of the MCU.
Yeah.
But I could talk for an hour and a half about it because that scene,
it was brilliant.
I mean, I turned to you at the. I was like, this is one of the most brilliant opening scenes to a television show or movie or like it just
anything.
Yeah, and it made Monica. It introduced Monica in a way that we've seen her in the past few episodes, but we've never met the character, and it introduced her as a character in a way that made me emotionally just like on her side 10,000%. And I loved it. I loved it. That opening sequence is so good. Yeah. And I was blown away by it.
Yeah, so far, like, I tend to try and view things with a slightly more critical eye just because, like, I want to make sure that I'm not, like, missing anything. And I think that Marvel's really, like, hasn't really missed any of their targets so far.
Not on this show, no.
Yeah, and, yeah, I'm very happy about that.
I am so grateful that Marvel has allowed the people creating this show to be as creative as they're being. Yeah. There is nothing cookie cutter there because Marvel gets a rap for being cookie cutter sometimes. Yeah. There is not a cookie cutter thing about this show. No, it's so creative. It's brilliant. It like you were like, who came up with this? Yeah. It's complex so far. It works. Like you said, we buy into it. We're down to support this like big dumb idea, Yeah. And yeah. And those aspect ratio changes? They look great. But I can't wait for next week's episode. Yeah. This is the first time I've ever seen a property use an aspect ratio change to tell story this well. Yeah. Ever. It is the best storytelling use of an aspect ratio change I've ever seen. And it's such a cool effect. It looks amazing. Yeah. Yeah, I'm so excited for next week. Me too. Yeah, we will be back next Friday for another one of these, but we're also live Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern here on twitch.tv/nerdynightly doing, boom, the nightly morning show. There's the logo. There's the pillow. We do that. Come join us live or watch it on the YouTube channel where you probably watch this, or listen to it on our podcast feed that we do through Anchor. Thank you to Anchor. Also, thank you to our Patreon subscribers. Our patrons are the backbone of Nerdy Nightly. We couldn't do any of this without you. Absolutely. So if you are not yet a member over at patreon.com/nerdynightly, please come check it out. For $1 a month, 25 cents a week, you get a weekly podcast, you get behind the scenes content, and there's cosplay, early access, other tiers above that. We also have a patron-only Discord channel. If you join up, that's only $1. Yeah, that's 25 cents a week. You could do that. That's not that. I could do that. I could be a patron. I don't know why. That would be weird. I'm going to pay taxes on my own money. Yeah, I don't like that. Let's not do that. Where do you stream? I can be found over at twitch.tv/ClarsterCars. That is right. You can find me on all the social medias over at that same handle. Yeah, it's up here. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Boom. I forgot that was there. As always, y'all, my name's David Webb. No. Oh, no. We have a new thing. My name's Nerdy. We're doing it. I'm Clarus. Do something nerdy tonight. Bye-bye.